Okay, starting with station 13 in this video, we are talking about heredity and Punnett squares and going over the vocabulary. Heredity is the passing of genetic material from parent to offspring. A gene is one set of instructions made of DNA for an inherited trait. Chromosomes are structures made of protein and DNA in the nucleus of a cell. Alleles are another version of a type of gene that governs a characteristic, example, hair color. So if you have a gene which determines hair color or eye color or whatever, you're going to have different alleles of that genes, or which are different versions of that genes that can give you brown hair, blonde hair, blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes. So the alleles are the different versions of the genes. Genotypes are the combination of genes for one or more specific traits. So you get one gene from your dad, one gene from your mom, and the combination of these genes dictate your specific trait for a certain thing, whether it's eye color or hair color or what have you. Phenotype is an organism's appearance based on its genotype. So whatever the genotype is that you inherited one gene from your mom, one gene from your dad, the combination of that is shown in the phenotype. So whatever genotype you have, the phenotype is the physical appearance of that gene or the expression of that gene on the outside. A Punnett square is a graphic used to predict the results of a genetic cross. A pedigree chart is a diagram that shows the occurrence of a genetic trait in several generations of a family. Okay, summary questions. What is the difference between a gene and an allele? An allele is a stretch of DNA that determines a trait. An allele is another version of a particular trait, which we kind of went over. Number two, what is the difference between a genotype and a phenotype? The phenotype is a set of genes responsible for a trait. The phenotype is the physical expression of that gene, which we went over that as well. What I wanted to add was, let's see if I can get this off of here real quick. An example of a Punnett square, just as a review. So if you have a Punnett square, it's going to look something like this. Okay, so this is the graphic that is used to predict what types of offspring two parents are going to have. And let's say you have parent 1 up here, parent 1. Over here you're going to have parent 2. Okay, and let's do parent 1 has green eyes, or let's do this, the gene or the trait for green eyes. So parent 1 has the genotype GG. Parent 2 has the genotype lowercase g, lowercase g. Now when you see a capital letter, that's going to be representative of a dominant trait. When you see a lowercase letter, that is representative of a recessive trait. It takes two recessive traits to show as a phenotype. So for example, this parent 2 is going to have green eyes with this lowercase g. Let's say this capital G is not green eyes. Let's say this is brown eyes. So capital G equals brown eyes, which is a dominant trait, and lowercase g equals green eyes. Okay? So when you do a Punnett square, you split the genotype. So you got one from your dad, one from your mom. So this is parent 1. One goes on top here, one goes here. Then you have parent 2. One of the G's is going to go here, and one is going to go here. Okay? Then all you do is just put them in the correct box. So you're going to have this G come down and be in this first box. So you get one of your genes from parent 1, and then one of your genes from parent 2, which is here. Over here in this box, you've got a lowercase g, so you're going to get a lowercase g, And then this one, you're going to get another lowercase g. You're going to bring this one over. And the third box, you're going to have this capital G again, and the lowercase g here. And then you'll have G, G again, and this fourth box. Each of these boxes represents offspring. So this would be like offspring number 1, offspring number 2, offspring number 3, offspring number 4. And it's used to predict a specific trait. In this case, we're talking about brown or green eyes. So if you have an offspring that has the dominant trait, no matter if it's a carrier of the recessive trait, brown eyes are going to show, because dominant always wins over a recessive trait. So you're going to have 2 children with brown eyes and 2 children with green eyes, or 2 offspring, if we're getting scientific. Okay, and that's just Punnett squares in a really quick version. Station 14, we've got mitosis, meiosis, asexual, and sexual reproduction. So mitosis is cellular division in eukaryotic cells, and it's a process of cell division that forms 2 nuclei with the same number of chromosomes. So mitosis is just when a cell makes an identical copy of itself and makes another one, another version of itself, but it's the same exact version. Meiosis is cellular division where the number of chromosomes decreases by half, by 2 divisions of the nucleus. So it continues over here. Okay, so in meiosis, you're going to have the number of chromosomes decrease by half, and that is because meiosis is used in sexual reproduction. So you have traits or DNA from your mom, and you've got DNA from your dad. So that's why you have half of the number of chromosomes when it comes to meiosis and cellular division. Asexual reproduction is where one parent produces offspring that are genetically identical. In sexual reproduction, sex cells from 2 parents unite to produce offspring with traits from both parents. Summary questions: which type of cellular division is required for asexual reproduction? That's mitosis. Which is required for sexual reproduction? This is meiosis. List the stages of mitosis. You've got interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase, which is cytokinesis, which means that the cells pop apart into 2 different cells. Number 4, list the stages of meiosis in order. So again, meiosis means that it goes through cellular division twice because you have half the number of chromosomes. So you have interphase, which is where DNA is copied in the interphase portion of cellular division. Then you have prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, telophase 1. And then in meiosis, you go through all of these phases again. You don't go through interphase again because the DNA has already been copied. But you have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase 2. Okay? What is the cell cycle and what are the stages? The life cycle of a cell is interphase, where the cell grows and makes copies of DNA. In the mitosis phase, which is where the cell separates, forming 2 new cells. All right, let's see if I can get this done in 15 minutes. All right, stage number 15. A food chain is a pathway of energy transfer as a result of feeding patterns between organisms. A food web is a diagram that shows the feeding relationships between organisms in an ecosystem. Number 3, producers, an organism that makes its own food. Consumers, they eat other organisms to get their energy. Decomposers get energy from eating dead things. What do the arrows of a food chain and food web represent? They represent the energy transferring from one organism to another. What is the difference between a food chain and a food web? Food webs are made up of multiple food chains. And what happens as you move up an energy pyramid? The energy decreases as you move up the pyramid from producers to consumers. Station number 16. This is symbiosis. So compare and contrast relationships among organisms such as mutualism, predation, parasitism, competition, and commensalism. Symbiosis is a relationship between 2 different organisms that live in close association with each other. If you have a mutualistic relationship, both species benefit. If you have a parasitic relationship, one benefits and one is harmed. If you have a commensalistic relationship, then you have one species benefiting and one that's completely unaffected. Predation is the preying of one animal on the other, on one or others. and competition is one or more organisms depending on the same limited resources. These are examples. We've got fungus provides nutrients to algae. Algae provides food for the fungus. Both of them benefit. That is an example of mutualism. Number 2 is an example of parasitism. Number 3 is an example of mutualism. Number 4, commensalism. Number 5, parasitism. And number 6, commensalism again. Looking at number 17, or station 17, you have all of these definitions here that I've written down because I didn't have enough room. Artificial selection is where humans breed animals and plants for desired traits. This happens all the time. Natural selection is evolution. So it's the process by which individuals are better adapted to their environment to survive and reproduce more successfully than less adapted individuals do. Variation is the occurrence of heredity and non-heredity differences between two different individuals of a population. So there's differences in different species in a population. That's what variation is. Number 5 is adaptation, an inherited trait that improves an individual's ability to survive and reproduce in a particular environment. And number 6 is extinction, the death of every member of a species. The summary question is, what are the 4 factors of natural selection, and describe each one? You've got overproduction, genetic variation, selection, and adaptation. Overproduction is where organisms produce more offspring than their environment can support. So they do this in order to ensure their survival. They don't want to make too little of offsprings, otherwise, the environment around them, predation and all of these other things, are going to eat all of their young, and they're not going to have any left. You've got genetic variation, which is different inherited traits exist within a single population. So in the video that you'll watch about the rock pocket mouse, you will see that there are some tan mice and there are some black mice. And this is the genetic variation that can happen within a single population or a single species. Number 3 is selection. Certain individuals within a population are more likely to survive and reproduce based off of predators. And number 4 is adaptation. Specific genetic traits that help an individual survive are passed along from generation to generation. This equals that trait is more common within the population. So if specific genetic traits help something survive, that trait is going to be passed on within a population, and it's going to be more common, which you will see in this rock pocket mouse video. These are the answers for the rock pocket mouse video. I'm going to leave this up here. I'm not going to go over it because we are going to run out of time for this video. But if you have any questions about any of the information that we've gone over, I know it's been fast, then please email me. The FCAT is not until Wednesday. And other than that, I wish you all very good luck. I know you guys will do just fine. For the next 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, you're going to be doing a review packet, like a practice FCAT test, which might help too. So if you have questions about any of that, please feel free to email me. And good luck.